Welcome to the electrifiedmind.com podcast, your direct access to the top life coaches, inspirational and motivational leaders of our world. Be prepared to eradicate your doubts, fears, and toxic energy as we electrify your mind for success at electrifiedmind.com. Welcome to the electrifiedmind.com podcast. I am your host, Philip Isaac. Before we get started today, I'd like to tell you about a company with stellar reviews. Carl's Landscaping, spelt with a K. That's K-H-A-R-R-L-S Landscaping, serving residential and commercial properties in Middle Tennessee and surrounding areas. Give them a call at 615-507-5313. As always, they provide free estimates. Tell them Electrified Mind sent you and save 15% off your first service. On today's show, we have an author, motivational speaker, leadership coach, business consultant, executive coach, internationally recognized educator, and personal power expert. I am privileged to introduce as a guest on our show today, the Power Zone coach, Rene Johnson. Rene, welcome to the show.
Philip, thank you so much for that great introduction and for having me on today.
Awesome, and we're excited to have you as well. Rene, I love asking world leaders such as yourself who they were before they became an incredible inspiration to the world and began empowering others, which you certainly do. So my point in asking you this question is to allow our listeners to hear that changing your mindset and changing your life is real. Changing your life from one of mediocrity and unfulfillment into a life of greatness is possible. And I'd like you to share your story, which I know a little bit about because I read your book and you talk about this in your book. Who was Rene Johnson and how did you become the incredible motivator and personal power expert that you are today?
What an honor to be able to share that, Philip. Yes, I think to understand people, you need to understand their journey. And for me, my background comes from having an environment that I was raised in. Being wedged between 6 siblings, for one, always fighting for my voice, but an unhealthy environment. And I found myself battling my way to my personal empowerment. And I didn't understand that's what it was until I got further into my adulthood. And I ended up being in a relationship that was what the DA said was the worst case of domestic violence he's ever seen. I'm lucky to be alive. Now, I don't say that for your listeners to have any pity. I say that because that is a turning point. That is an opportunity where I was able to champion my life and take the environment that I grew up, the messaging that I was told I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, you're not capable, all these things that I grew up in, and turn that into an opportunity for personal empowerment and finding my voice on this journey. And the turning point when you're talking about here is for me to find that was actually on the other side of it. Having gone through all of the experience one goes through when you're finding safety for you and your young children, you're making a new way for yourself. You're going through all the legal ramifications. You're trying to make yourself a new home in a state, a place you never lived, don't have friends, don't have a job, don't have a home to live. You're doing all this survival, okay? And the pivotal point came for me, just pushing, pulling all those years to have the DA tell me after everything they did, somebody forgot to cross the T and dot the I, and we missed the statute of limitations to prosecute to keep myself, my children safe by 180 days. 180 days. And in that moment, I had a choice to make. I literally fell to my knees. I literally called to the universe, what the heck? I've proven I'm strong. What else do you want from me? And there was this voice, this internal voice that I basically heard was, you're not done yet. This is not the end of you. And this energetically being pulled to my knees. And one quick fast forward is being interviewed on a show about my experience and my fight to get to my personal power in it. In essence, my voice was the interviewer saying to me, what did it feel like in that moment? What did it feel like for the DA to say they had no power and for you now to feel powerless. And I recall from like a core center of myself, the voice came up and said, the DA never had the power. I always had the power. And in that moment, Philip, in that moment of the messaging I lived with, and that got me into that situation, that got me into fighting for my life and my very well-being, it was in that moment of brilliance, actually, that my higher self spoke to me. And the DA never had the power. It was when I chose to embrace my power, my personal voice, is when everything in my life changed.
Wow. Wow. So incredible. You have a quote on your desk in a frame by Bruce Barton, which reads, "Nothing great has ever been achieved except by those who dared to believe something inside of them was superior to circumstances." And you certainly live by this now. And it's certainly something that we should all live by because it's true. Only we stop us. You know, our financial situation doesn't stop us. The relationships we're in don't stop us. When did this mentality take root in your life? And what has believing this philosophy allowed you to achieve so far in your life that you most likely wouldn't have been able to achieve if you had succumbed to the "my circumstances won't allow it" syndrome?
When I thought about that question you posed to me earlier, it's a big question, Philip, right? Because it's become a mantra. It's become the core inside of me, and looking beyond circumstances. And I'll tell you, to be honest to your listeners, sometimes I'm caught up in the middle of them and I have to go, whoa, wait a minute. I need to trust myself. I need to see beyond the situation I'm in because I've proven to myself I'm capable. I've proven this strength. And what I find might be helpful for your listeners is taking that story beyond that I started your program with, is when the DA said that there was nothing else they could do for me, and they're apologetic and so forth, I was now left to protect my children. And as any mama bear would do, we protect our children. So the circumstances were such that I had employed different attorneys outside the DA to help me protect them, and working 3 jobs and trying to make something happen of the circumstances, as you read in that quote. And none of them said that it was capable, that they weren't going to be able to do it. And I was brought to their situation to where I had to pull in and find that courage that exists in us. Sometimes it takes situations to rekindle it, to get acquainted with it again. And I put myself back to school online, Lincoln Law School, and learned enough that I found myself in a courtroom next to my ex and his high-powered attorney, and myself, and I like to say, sitting at a table in front of a judge. The circumstances was told by everybody who had more experience than me that it is impossible. You're not going to get this because you didn't get the other. And I spoke from my heart. I spoke from my power zone. And you know what? I got it. I got what all those attorneys said I would never get: the toughest protective order to protect my children. And as I walked out of the courtroom, a gentleman ran up to me, "What law firm do you work for?" And I was surprised because I said to him, "I'm not a lawyer, but it sure feels good to be mistaken for one," because in that moment I had found my voice again, that power again. And that is what the answer to your question is there are going to be many circumstances, maybe not as grueling as some of the things I've been through. And let me tell you, there's been one after the other. And I can look at them and say, well, what are you doing to cause this? Or what are you doing to grow in spite of it? Right?
I love that. And I love that part in the book where you were walking out of the courtroom and someone asked you which law firm the only thing that disappointed me was that you didn't take the job.
Well, remember later, I go and I sit with other women who are trying to find their voice. I end up serving through WEAVE in Sacramento, Women Escaping a Violent Environment. And I got to be with them and help. I've helped thousands of women to this date to find their voice and to claim what's rightfully theirs, their power zone. And so, I guess the job was bigger than being stuck in a law firm.
Love that. Love that. I want to talk to you about the incredible book that you've written. And this is a 100% absolute must read for anybody that's listening to the show today. This isn't just a book that you're going to read. It's a book that you're going to interact with and complete assignments and really dive deep into goals and the vision you have for yourself. And I want to say this before we get started. I devoured this book, and I read a lot of books. And when I say this book is incredible, I mean it is incredible. So I've written down my goals before many times, but your book, Rene, it really challenged me to dig deeper and to really understand what it was that I wanted in my life and why I wanted it. And I can't thank you enough for writing this book and being so incredibly thorough. I have never, in all my goal-setting days, been clearer and more focused than I am today, just 2 weeks after working through your book. So thank you for that before we get started. Thank you for that.
Philip, I am so honored to hear that. That's exactly why I wrote it. And so to hear it live from someone, if you could see me, I have a huge smile on my face over here.
Awesome. This book is titled Leaving Your Comfort Zone, How to Lead Your Life from the Power Zone. And I'd like to start the conversation with a quote or passage from your book. When I am leading my life from my power zone, I am grounded, confident, powerful, and energized, inspired and passionate. Things come so much easier, and I'm not struggling and working against myself. I feel joyful, alive, aligned, and purposeful. I show up, meaning I embrace my greatness and play bigger in my life. I truly believe this comes from connecting with my most powerful self on the inside, or what I call the power zone. My question is this: how can we recognize the power zone in ourselves?
You can recognize it by getting in touch with your internal energy. And let me tell you how and what that's made up of. When I speak to audiences, I will often give them the exercise to think about a time in their life when they had success, when they felt inspired, when they championed the impossible. And each of us have had some point in our life, and hopefully many opportunities. And I get them to share with me, what does it look like? What are you doing? What does it look like, right? And they can often say, well, this or that, and they can recognize it. Well, then what did it feel like? And the commonality that comes forward is exactly what you read in that passage: grounded, energized, inspired, on top of it, confident, all those different things. And that's your internal energy, your power zone, when it's intersecting. And the power zone, throughout my own life work and working with thousands of individuals thus far, I've identified it comes down to 3 core elements. And when these intersect is when you're going to get that experience on the inside and the outside. And the first, well, they're not in any particular order, but there's 3. So the first one is your values. Your values are core motivating energy. They are a driving force inside of us. They're not your morals of good or bad. They are our driving core energy. And Philip, what you resonated with while you're reading my book is because you have similar values with me. And that brought us together. When we liken ourselves to others, there is some core energy that is intersecting and is connecting us. So getting really clear on what your values are, because they'll be your driving, motivating force. The next one is your personal strengths. Now, this is a tough one for a lot of people, because as we get busy professionals, busy in our life, whether we have businesses or we're in leadership roles or managing different community things, we want to be good at a lot of things, but it's not possible to be in your power zone and be good at a lot of things. What it's calling you to do is to rise up and choose your strengths. Choose your strengths. Let go of all the other peripheral things and choose your strengths and honor those and watch what happens. The third is your personal why. Your personal why. And that can be a difficult thing to find on this journey, right? I often find that that is part of the power zone journey. And your personal why is your core of your power zone. It is your purpose. It is your passion. It is your potential. And so getting very clear, that's when you're intersected with your power zone. Back to any situation and you find what I just shared with you, feeling those things in the quote you shared, I bet you could find those three things intersecting at that moment.
Awesome. So awesome. I found the section in your book where you talk about how it feels when we are not leading our lives from the power zone very useful to me. I wasn't in my power zone completely when I read your book. Little did I know, but understanding this and acknowledging this and doing something about this is critical to be successful in our lives, whatever success means to you. But certainly if we're intending to lead a life of greatness, this is important. Would you share with us how it feels when we're not leading our lives from our power zone?
It's interesting is when I'm working with my clients and they're talking about what they want and why they haven't achieved it yet, it will usually come back to the points that you just asked me. And what's happening typically is they're going to feel like they're complacent. Okay. That is definitely when we're not in our power zone. And, there's times in our life where we might feel like coasting, we might want to take a break, but that's different than being complacent. Because even just scientifically, energy wise, when you coast at some point, if you don't give it a little push, right, you're going to stop, right? You have to be going downhill for that to continue, and that's not a good way to go. So internally, what I'll hear clients saying, and even myself sometimes feel at different times, you're going to feel this gnawing at you. Your truth is going to be there. You know better, but you don't know how to do better, or maybe at that moment you're not caring to do better, and you might find yourself going through the motions, and because of that, you're getting enough done, but you're not feeling that it's driving, that there's an energetic force, that you're making a greater influence or impact. Something is missing because you're misaligned, right? The greater sense of it, the opposite of it, that, heaven forbid you get there, it's a little more challenging to get out of, but not impossible, is you're going to feel really stressed out. You're going to feel at a loss. Clients have described it as even feeling they're spiraling, right? And when I drill it down and we go back to getting in touch with their power zone, the essence of it is somewhere along the way, they stop trusting themselves. So when you're not leading your life from your power zone, you're not trusting yourself in some way. Think about that.
I know that authenticity and being vulnerable about things in your life really empowered you and really allowed you to connect with people. Tell us how liberating it is to be authentic, and why is authenticity such a major player in leading our lives from the power zone?
It's about getting real and being honest with yourself. And honestly, that could scare the crap out of you, right? Okay. But for me, that's when I make the greatest impact. That's when I make the greatest breakthroughs. That's where I serve the greater masses that I'm meant here to do, is by being vulnerable. And to be the power zone coach, I need to be the example of vulnerability. I need to be able to share my voice, the good, bad, and ugly, and be real about it. And my followers get the most out of that as a result, because then it gives them permission to see it in themselves. Yeah, I had that crappy day, but what am I going to do about it? Yeah, I didn't have that courageous conversation, but how am I going to do it different? Yeah, I'm feeling that way and I'm going to own it, but I don't know what I want to do different. I mean, I can go on and on. So the vulnerability piece to me is a huge aspect to be an empowered leader in your life and in your work, your business, whatever that may be for you. It is very difficult to inspire others. And as a leader, you've got to be able to inspire the changes you want in others. And that has to come from yourself first. And that requires being authentic and vulnerable, right? It requires that. Otherwise, you're not able to grow beyond your current comfort zone. And vulnerability will allow you to expose your comfort zone to you. And only when it's seen can you own it and do something about it. And, that creates that awareness and responsibility that's necessary to make those changes. So I want to be an empowerment of being vulnerable. And so in my post, in my work, my speaking, I make sure I integrate that in there. I don't want to be one of those ones that are standing up and going, do this, do that, watch me, and it seems impossible and out of reach. By sharing my stories, by sharing my clients' growth stories and opportunities, I'm giving the permission to others to be vulnerable and to face theirs and be authentic. And that's where the true power to change is going to come from.
I love that. So you're going first. Love that.
Yeah, I think you need to be an example. That's, to me, when I talk about being a personal power expert, that's what I mean. I have to be the example of what I'm teaching others, or I'm not the expert, right? And that requires that, guess what? I'm going to have to find new layers of my power zone. And I'm hoping that I find many of them throughout my lifetime, because each time I get to go deeper, I get to bring out more wisdom and opportunities to teach and to serve and to love on others and help them find theirs as well.
So awesome. Fulfilling our vision of success, you write in your book, requires that you develop the confidence to take risks. How, Rene? How do we build our confidence so that the fear of taking risks doesn't cripple us?
The fear of taking risk, I drill it back again to that power of trusting yourself. And when you're facing something new and you're trying to go down a new path and you're trying to reach that bigger vision of success for yourself, a sure way of not feeling confident is not having a plan. It may seem basic, but I find this to be a truth that comes up when I'm working with new clients particularly is, well, I started this way, but I lost sight, or I didn't feel like it was really working, or the essence of it started to become more fearful for me and I didn't know how to go about it, and so forth and so forth. So all of those different excuses, okay, that are resonating from our comfort zone is because we haven't first identified what that vision is. Very clear. If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. How can you be confident with something you can't see? Okay, how do you be confident with something you can't see? So first place is to build a plan. The second is making sure that you have milestones along the way to evaluate and measure how your plan is working. That keeps your hands on the steering wheel, right? Keeps you in the driver's seat where you're front and center and you're making sure that your plans are working or you're course correcting as you need to. That builds confidence that you're doing it and it's working for you and you can see it taking form, right? The next thing is to make sure that you're allowing support. This is a journey to success. And I think journeys are much more enjoyable if we have people around us that believe in us and can raise us up, can positively challenge us, whatever it may look like, but getting yourself support. And there's a lot of different ways out there like mentors and coaches and so forth, but allowing support. You do not need to have all the answers, nor are you supposed to have all the answers. And forcing yourself to know everything is going to actually have the reverse effect of making you not feel confident and making you not take risk to grow. The next part of that is we need to celebrate success and celebrate it often. This is a huge asset we have available to us that very few get the principle of this and the power that it is in our life and in our work. So when we celebrate success, does it make us want to do more or less? When we're celebrating those milestones, it reinforces the confidence, the belief that we have in ourselves and what we're capable of, and then it automatically raises our expectation of what we're capable of and what we want to go do next. And that breaks down those fears of taking risk. Who wants to take a risk on when you can't see how you're going to do it, when you don't have ways to recognize that it's working, when you don't have support around you, and when you don't have the opportunities to say, yes, I did it, I'm capable, let's keep going. So in a nutshell, there's some backwards ways, we get into the psyche of breaking down and building the confidence. But the outer part of it, that would be a recommendation I would highly empower your listeners to think about. And which part of that are they utilizing? Which parts can they benefit from?
Love that. I'm so glad I asked that question.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Gremlins. I've been in the personal development industry. I've interviewed over 100 life coaches at this point, and the philosophy is the same, but everybody has their own word. This is the first time I've heard Gremlin. What is a gremlin?
Okay, so the gremlin is a coaching term. You just kind of mentioned that talking to different coaches, but for me, it's an embodiment of a self-belief that was created in the past. Okay, so we have to think of it as basically an embodiment, and it's actually rooted in deeper in fears, maybe negative personal messages about ourselves, what other people told us that we decided to start believing. And it makes us work harder, and it makes us actually reinforce the negativity about ourselves. Not a good place to be, right? That's what it's doing. And the gremlin, I actually do work with my clients and really helping them pay attention when their gremlin's showing up. And you can recognize when it's showing up because it's in I am statements. I'm not good enough. I'm not capable. I'll never get this right. Okay. And usually it has a really high emotional charge to it. And it won't make you feel more empowered. It takes your power away from you. And ultimately it's going to diminish your confidence. And that's the whole sole purpose of it with that, because it's about, I know we get into a little bit more about how to overcome, but that's its whole purpose of really holding you back, keeping you safe in your comfort zone, because it knows how to work within your comfort zone. And heaven forbid you move into your power zone. I don't know how to work in that space. So I'm going to do everything I can to keep you in that space. And if you can envision, you have a good devil, a bad devil, or, good on your shoulder, you also have a gremlin right in the middle. Okay.
Yes, I would like to dive a little bit deeper. I'd like to have you share some actionable advice with us on how to overcome our gremlins.
Okay, so the first thing is to recognize, pay attention to your thoughts. And, we can go about our busy day and not tie our thoughts to what's happening in our outer world around us. So I ask my clients to do some journaling work, to really pay attention to their thoughts and taking some time to actually note them in writing so they can start to see what is this messaging coming up and find those internal messages. A deeper work that I do is, and you can do this, I talk about this in my book, Philip, where you can do the exercise yourself, where you can get yourself into a space where you feel comfortable, you have privacy, and you can get yourself grounded and centered. Maybe a little difficult sometimes with everything going on. So use tools, music, quotes, meditation, whatever you need to get into that space. And in that space, really listen to your internal self. Listen. Take time to truly listen. And a good way to do that is to invite your gremlin to come forward. And I actually have my clients actually close their eyes and envision what it looks like. And it may seem goofy at first, but I tell you what, if you just listen and you have your eyes closed and you try to get a visual picture of your gremlin, you're going to see it. You're going to see it. And it takes on different forms for different people. Sometimes it looks like a Tasmanian devil. Okay. Sometimes it's a big old blob. Sometimes it's your smaller child, your inner child of yourself. So getting a visual of it, because here's the thing, the whole purpose of it is that side of you that's trying to keep you safe. It has all your fears embodied inside of it. And it's just, if you think about it for a second and give it compassion and allow it to expose itself to you and say, Gremlin, why are you here today? Seriously, get quiet, ask you that question. Why are you here today? Now just be quiet and listen. What does it tell you? And what it often does, it starts to feed you your fears. I'm worried about you this way. I'm worried about you this way. I'm fearful of this. We are not capable. We can't. And all of this garbage, basically, that's been programmed deep inside of you, okay, that's trying to take your energy. And so if you take time and you actually listen to it, don't cut it off. Don't justify it. Don't defend it. It's there. It's real. Now, once it's done speaking to you, okay, and it takes practice to do this, and you can even write it out in front of you, and I talk about the exercise in detail in my book, but you can then actually acknowledge it, because the whole purpose is trying to love you. It's trying to keep you safe and trying to protect you. So why do you want to beat it up? Honor it. It's that side of you that wants to protect you. So Gremlin, I honor you. I thank you I appreciate you. I know that you're here today because you're trying to protect me. But guess what? I don't need you to protect me from my greatness anymore. And by saying that, by telling it, I have a new job for you. I'm going to ask you to come forward and bring your energy into this space instead. Okay? And into this space, this is your new job. I need you to do this instead. And you replace with empowerment the things that it's trying to keep you from. We are capable. Here's why. Here's what we're very much worthy of doing. Here's why. And you get that part of you to see your potential, your power zone. And I even have my clients do an exercise where they rename it and give it a new name, like power or eagle or trust or whatever, they want to name it. And then when they start to hear that personal chatter in their day, because it takes a while to recognize, it's not going to happen overnight. But the first place is awareness, right? To take responsibility. Then actually say, whoa, gremlin, remember your new name is, and whatever you gave it, this is how I need you to support me. Because it's energetically the part of you that lost trust in yourself, that has fear, and often your inner child, okay, if you want to go deeper, work with that. And we need to get it to recognize, I know you're here, instead of stuffing you down, because it will just get ugly and worse if you do that. I know you're here, but remember, we got this. Use that energy over here. Take a step with me. And I encourage my clients to do the exercise of actually crossing the line, Philip. And crossing the line is so powerful because, once you get that visual of all that fear, that garbage, that you're gremlin, and you've now have owned it, and you're kind with it, you're not going to beat yourself up, and you're going to give it a new name, a new power, then you say, are you ready? We're ready. And you physically step over a line. The release you have, the empowerment you have is phenomenal. I have CEOs and executives do this, okay? I have senators do this. It's an exercise, and now you have a way in your busy day-to-day life when you get stuck to say, whoa, let me have a moment. I know you're there. Let's talk about what your fears are, what's going on. Remember who we are, what we're capable of. Come on now. Let's step over the line together. Instead of having this battle inside of you of pushing and pulling, okay? Does that make sense? Does that kind of help you with that?
Oh, absolutely. I love it. I don't need you to protect me from my greatness anymore. I love that. You discussed in your book that some of our outer challenges are rational and others are irrational. Would you tell us the difference between a rational outer challenge and an irrational one?
The difference is what you can or cannot control. We're going to have outside challenges. I face them, okay? Even Miss Power Zone. Things that come into our environment, things that happen because maybe other people do things, or it's decisions we've made and now we're having to face them, whatever it may be. So at that moment, it's about determining what you truly have power over and what you don't, because you don't have power over everything. And when we start to try to take control of things we try to change things that we cannot, then we're dealing in the irrational space. I share an example in my book about, I think, something around really looking at, let's say that you are going for a job, I think it is, and it requires certain skills, it requires certain experience and whatnot. And you may feel frustrated and you may feel like, well, they're discriminating. I have everything else, but, and I just don't have that. And I'm not able to do that. So I'm just going to beat my head against the wall, or I'm just going to feel sorry for myself or whatnot. So now you're playing in a space where, you're taking away your personal power. You have to ask yourself, do I have control over that or not? If you don't, move on to something else that you have power over. In that case, absolutely. You can decide, well, I'm going to go find a role that's going to fit the skills I have now, allow me to grow into new skills, or I'm going to go get those new skills. I'm going to find the outlets I need and go get them, and then put myself in a better position to actually now have that new role that I feel I'm deserving of, or I would like to have as part of my vision or whatnot. So when we stay in the irrational space, we do a lot of beating ourselves up. We justify, we validate, we blame. Okay, that's irrational. You've taken your power away. Does that help you with that?
So powerful, Rene. Absolutely. So powerful. Remaining a great task doer, not focused on what you believe in, your dreams, is a huge challenge, especially for women, which you write about in your book. In today's world, women don't go to work and come home like men do. They are also tasked with grocery shopping, cleaning the house, making dinner, getting the kids ready for school, et cetera, et cetera. And it's easy to see a task doer being born out of necessity. And you write, unleashing your assertiveness is one of the biggest challenges women face. They have lived with the tolerance factor so long that they hold themselves back from making their lives easier and more rewarding. And you go on to say that there's a difference in being assertive and being aggressive. Tell us the difference.
Assertiveness, in a nutshell, is taking a stand for what you believe in. Okay? It's taking a stand for what you believe in. It's also often a misunderstood word, because I don't mean like taking a stand like aggressiveness. Aggressiveness is, it's my way or the highway. This is what I want, and I'm going to force my ideas, my beliefs upon you, okay? That's a very different energetic feel. Assertiveness, it's okay to have ideas and beliefs, but what you're working to do is to now bring that vision that you have, that you need to take a stand for, into other people's views and help them see how it benefits them, or how they can share in it, or how they can take part. So even in the basic day-to-day living, like you're just talking about with women and what they're needing to achieve, and men have to do that too in this day and age, being able to communicate to others what the end goal is and how we can achieve that together, how we can support each other. So enlisting others to be part of your vision, basically, that requires communication and being able to share your voice, being able to inspire others and lead that, core principles that I talk about in my book. So aggressiveness would be like, how come you're never doing that? I never have your help. Trying to guilt people into your ideas or supporting you to get the groceries done or get the housekeeping done or whatnot, or get the task at the office done. And that doesn't go very far. Our threats can only go so far, right? And you're certainly not empowering other people to join in your vision. Where assertiveness is about really understanding what it is you need to achieve and why. Now bringing that forward and making sure others understand it and can participate in your vision. See the energetic difference in that alone?
Certainly do. Absolutely, certainly do. Rene, your final thought in your book gave me chill bumps. I'll tell you that. I knew I wanted to have you in my life and as a guest on my show when we were introduced by a dear friend of ours, Dr. Aura Mboris, and she introduces me to all the amazing people. So I knew I was going to be meeting another amazing person, and I did. But your final thoughts in your book are a testament that we can do what we put our hearts and our minds into, whatever that may be. Your story is truly an inspiration to me and to the world. Thank you so much for coming into my life and being a guest on my show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Philip. It's truly an honor, and I sincerely mean that. Thank you.
Awesome. Where can we find you online?
Online, I make it easy as the Power Zone Coach. You just go to powerzonecoach.com. And when you go to powerzonecoach.com, I have resources there, and I also have links to my different social media pages where I try to share and empower and educate and add value. That's my whole charge here, is to add value, and you can choose what to do with it. But that's the easiest place to find me.
I always end the show with a final question that I ask all my guests, and here it is. If today was your last day on Earth, and you could leave here being remembered for one thing, just one thing, what would that one thing be, and what are you doing today to ensure that legacy?
What an empowering question, Philip. And that one's no prep. One thing. What my whole life purpose to be is about helping, this is going to make me a little emotional, helping others find their voice. That's what I want to be remembered about, because to me, having my voice suppressed in many ways in my life, throughout most of my life, and then having to put my claws positively into it and truly, hang on to it and enjoy this beautiful, empowering ride with its ups and downs. I know without a doubt, if my legacy could be that Rene helped me find my voice to do, to be, to become. To me, that would be the greatest honor I could have. The greatest honor I could have, because that meant then I lived my life. I lived my life being authentic and vulnerable and inspiring to make sure I could give that gift to others. That would be my legacy I would leave behind.